the host. And if you have any questions, ask me any questions. I have been working with Dr. Gigi Smith, and I keep telling her she needs to start with just like Dr. Gigi. I just love that. I just love that name,
Well,
especially
let's
because I
do
think
it.
she
Let's
holds.
do it
Let's do
now.
it. Let's do it now because we have some work to do with the CFP podcast that's going on here. Well, today it's about, and you want to be in this conversation with us if you're launching your podcast or you have a podcast, you haven't been able to monetize it. You're trying to figure out, what do I need to do? But we're really going to be, you want to be in this energy because I think there's so much noise out there. So how can you really base your knowledge that you have, the stuff you've already done throughout your life, how you can bring all that together so that you really have power what you're speaking about? Because all you need is one person, and that one person tells so and so, and you're going to get bigger algorithm of just being out there and exposing yourself. And it's hard, I believe, to start a podcast and purely be authentic. Not just I'm saying the words, but Gigi and I have been talking about the CFP energy, the energy. And so welcome in, Dr. Gigi. Let's talk about that.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for having me, Rhonda. This is Dr. Gigi.
The new Dr. Gigi. Woohoo! Hey, Dr. Gigi, the can you express what the CFP energy is like? What's your podcast energy about? Because I know that we were talking about like being in truth, not feeling like you're a failure, like really building. There is a yes, 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 and there's like just share when you're in that energy, what you're working towards in your soft launch as we get you launched your launching your podcast.
Yeah, thank you. The idea about CFP is to provide a platform that will help inspire, motivate, and transform entrepreneurs. I've been in the entrepreneurial space, for decades, mostly working as an employee. But once I moved to become an entrepreneur, there's a lot of different skills that I had to employ. And sometimes I did that well, sometimes I didn't do that well. And so I want to help people get over those humps.
Well, what does the CFP energy feel like? Just give them a little boost of like, I know I want to feel really good about myself. Well, it's not just the word good. We've been talking about like the yes, yes, yes. We've been talking about like, like the space where you just kind of feel that energy. What does that mean for you when you're in that energy?
Well, I like what you just said. It was yes, yes, yes. We were talking earlier about being in an energy or being in a space where your yeses are like, fuck yes. And your
Yep.
no's are like, yeah, no dog, I'm not going to do any of that. Yeah.
Yep.
And
We
just
were
being
talking,
here.
come on. And also, you know what I like what you said?
What's that?
I find that I wake up sometimes in fear. So what is that? Like no fear, no doubt.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
But the work and with this podcast, you're going to be bringing in all these different modalities that you work on and stuff. So to get into the space and really feel into that truth, I mean, like, how can I, be speaking about these things? But it's the work that you do with others, and then you're also doing it for yourself, and that really helps you get into that space. What are some of the modalities that you work in?
That's a good question. So let me back up a bit. So I offer two brands. I'm a healer and I'm also a technologist. I started my career in technology in the 80s, long time ago, but I've been developing apps, applications, marketing since that time. But as I got older, I started realizing technology for technology's sake doesn't do anything. You really need to have a mindset to go along with the technology. When I got into healing, that was, at the cusp of experiencing alcoholism and prescription pain pill abuse. And so I had to go and do my own internal healing. I had to go in and figure out who is Gigi? Who is Gigi? What does she like? All of that. Because I really didn't know. I knew what society said I should want and I should have. And I said those things too. But really, Rhonda, to the extent that all of that stuff resonated in my heart and dare I say, my pussy, not so much.
Yeah.
And so being able to use emotional freedom techniques, breath work, hypnosis to really allow me to ground, to understand, okay, when somebody asks me a question, am I answering out of fear or am I answering from love? And most of the time I was answering out of fear. I was answering because, I didn't want people to think I was a horrible person. But now, that I've been able to figure out, okay, who is Gigi? What does Gigi like? What is Gigi all about? What makes her light up? And and the fact that I like it, I like who I am, helps me to be able to stand tall and have
Yeah.
courage that when I speak, it has value because I
Yeah.
recognize I have value. And I didn't
It's such
always recognize I had value.
it's such a hard lesson to learn that's seems so serving to ourselves when we start opening that voice and like what you said, like the pussy energy, like the energy, your essence, that you can really feel like that gut feeling of, yes, I can feel it. It's the right thing. So that also having money is really important. So when you're looking at all the stuff you're doing, that's just one of the things, but it's the way that you receive it. We were talking about just the receiving when you're in that energy. It's like so wonderful to be able to know how to receive something. And I think that's one of the things that we have to learn. I don't know many women that receive very well when you're giving them something or a compliment. It's just like, oh, I got this. Oh, they start talking about that instead of just the receiving of the thank you of the compliment. So your podcast, I could see, could be very powerful in how you are being able to work with your technology. Because when you and I started our morning together, we just had technology stuff going on, but it wasn't. I'm scared. This is not going to, happen. How are we going to get connected? It was like, okay, I'm having an issue. It's working through it. Self, but that's what technology is. Just like we are. We're not always 100% on. What do you think, Gigi? I mean, this could be a good,
I, I
this is
think
good stuff.
I think that's a really good point because
Mhm.
the idea of receiving. Think about that. When we grew up, oh, I'll be more specific. When I grew up with this idea, and I've heard this theme many times. It's better to give than to receive. Have you heard? Did you hear that one?
Well, yes.
Okay,
It
and
never
so
served me. Well, it did if I was in the heart, but it's not better.
exactly, and
But we
so
heard
I
it
grew up,
so many times.
yeah, and so growing up with it, receiving, it was almost alien. It took me a long time to receive because I thought if somebody gives me something, I've got to give them something. But
It's a
receiving is
never
very
ending
different than that.
it's a never ending marathon too then. Because if you give
Yeah,
somebody something, they're like, "Oh, I end that friendship because they just are never there for me." But it's that CFP energy. It's like, no, you want to express and communicate and use your vocals and feel that yes, yes, yes.
yes,
And if you are giving something to somebody that it doesn't feel like a good, like they're not receiving well, then maybe it's not the fight. It's just that they're in the wrong frequency. And
yeah,
that gives you the answer right away instead of we hear people fighting consistently, but it's like it puts a whole heart center in that. I see how this podcast could really open up people's eyes and be able to connect with that, hey, I'm not perfect, which is beautiful.
yes,
My technology isn't perfect, and downright, I'm afraid of it because you're thinking I'm alien to my body because I don't even really know it, to where
yes,
you feel very comfortable also in technology because that's where you've been all your life. And you're able to bring, like, it tethers together and how people can allow the technology to do what it needs to do and have some hiccups here and there and do it without being scared, and how that can elevate their life and their connection with people and networking and if they want to run a podcast, like there's all these things that you're going to be opening up of how you
Yeah,
can bring all that energy together just by getting to know yourself, doing your work, and understanding how to partner. Because you were even talking, this is the last part, but you could add on to something after this to finish it off. But even you talking about AI, about how so many people are afraid of it, but you can see how this can just explosively do wonderful things for businesses. So I see a lot of this really healing a lot of wounds out there when you're in that CFP energy and running your podcast and getting it out there for people.
exactly. I think that's a really good point. And I think the idea about technology, is something that can be off-putting to a lot of entrepreneurs. I remember one of my clients, who had spent most of her time as an employee. But then once she retired, she wanted to get out there, and she was, um, doing some entrepreneurial stuff. But the idea of AI, working with AI, she had some, religious upbringing, and she was really thinking AI meant evil. It was going to take over everything. It's going to eliminate, you know, jobs from people, and all of those
Yeah.
things. And I remember that same conversation happening when I was just moving into technology in the 70s and the 80s. You know,
Mm.
during
Yeah.
that time, computers were not on everybody's desk, but people had a lot of fear. Oh, these computers are going to take jobs. And I remember having conversations that, well, the computers are going to do those things that the computer can do more efficiently and effectively, leaving you to do something different, something better. And so that's how I've always sold technology, because it's worked that way for me. And so, in the same vein with AI, it's about really understanding. Okay, how can we make it work? And Rhonda, one of the things we're going to learn in CFP is to unlearn a lot of the things that we've been taught, because technology for technology's sake is not evil.
Right. Oh, I love that.
You know,
So, Gigi, we've been working on your podcast. So, within a month or 2 months, you're going to be out there just getting it going. I can't wait to hear more about this stuff. And I love the stuff you brought up. This is incredible. You're totally ready to like launch now, but I know that all this work that you're doing, it's really intertwining and connecting everything so you can consistently get out there and rock it, Mama. I'm
yeah,
very excited. You're
I'm
going to be serving
excited
in a great
too.
space. All right. All right, everybody. Fresh Talks Global Vision. We love to talk to people that are just insightful and not just people that are insightful, people that are learning to nail it, even though they already are, but at another frequency, because we are going to be changing and updating. I'll say updating this world. I believe hashtag speaker locking arms as we come together. We just keep crowding out that negativity that we can hear, and we keep bringing that frequency up more and more. Appreciate you, Dr. Gigi.
I appreciate you too. Thank you.
And my doggy is celebrating. He's dreaming and he's barking at something. So he's in his
Yay!
celebration. Just a moment ago, he was scratching. Now he's barking and go. Woo, 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 woo. Thank you, Gigi, Dr.
I love
Gigi.
that. Thank you.
Namaste,